Good afternoon, I'm Riles Parker, Chief of Schools and Behavior Supports for the Cedar Rapids District. This afternoon we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about our agreement with the Department of Justice and also some of the proactive steps that we're taking through what we've learned over the past few years in the area of behavior. The Department of Justice agreement was signed on September 12th, 2022, and the target date for this agreement ending is this upcoming June 30th, 2026. As long as we meet all the requirements to the satisfaction of the Department of Justice, we will be released from the agreement at that time. This has presented our district an opportunity to create a supportive, safe, and secure learning environment for all of our students. As I go through this presentation, you'll have another opportunity at the end. There's a QR code here that you can scan on your screen to ask any questions, and those questions come straight to me here. If you have questions outside of this or don't want to use the QR code, you can always call the Cedar Rapids District, or on our website at the very bottom, there's a tab called Supporting All Students that will take you to this information as well. There are 5 big changes with the agreement. 3 have to do with crisis prevention and 2 have to do, with crisis intervention. So safety teams and crisis prevention protocols are in place at each building. There's training specifically around de-escalation that is now mandatory in every one of our buildings. And we also have increased the level of support we have around functional behavior assessments and behavior intervention plans for our students who need the most support. We also have 2 things in the area of crisis intervention, which seclusion is no longer allowed in the Cedar Rapids Community School District, and physical restraint is only used when there's an imminent risk of serious bodily injury. In every school, there's a safety team and crisis prevention protocols that are reviewed yearly with the entire staff, and each building has a specific set of protocols that they run through when they have a student in crisis or students in crisis to make sure that they keep those students safe, as well as keep an active learning environment running through the rest of the building. When it comes to training de-escalation, this refers to a progression of nonverbal, verbal, and environmental interventions that are used to respond to student behavior. And the goal is to prevent that behavior from escalating further and prevent the need for potential restraint of a student or any physical issues that happens with a student. So this helps us address student behavior in the least intrusive manner possible, which is always our highest priority. An FBA is a functional behavior assessment, and this is what we use to determine the student's needs and why they are having the behavior of concern. With the information that we get from a functional behavior assessment, we create a behavior intervention plan, which is very specific on how we work with a student before a behavior, during a behavior, and after a behavior to make sure that we're providing them all the tools and resources that they need to help them learn different ways to express what they're feeling and get what they need. We have a few board policies related to this agreement. So we have board policy 616 in the area of seclusion. We have board policy 616 that addresses that when we can use physical restraint in our district. It also it addresses that it's the last resort. It also addresses things around a safety team member using restraint, and also that a physical restraint should end as soon as the risk is concluded. We also have in that board policy 616 that physical restraint should not be used as a punishment or a way to enforce compliance or rules. It specifically should only be used to keep students safe from themselves or from others. Finally, board policy 616 addresses the debriefing that occurs after a physical restraint, specifically with our school counselor or licensed mental health practitioner in the building. This next slide here is really just to kind of give an overview of all the things that happen after a restraint occurs in our building. And it's very much of a ripple effect that occurs when it comes to supports and services from our district. So when a student has a restraint, there's a safety team within that building debrief of the incident. And then our director, Tammy Beener, comes out and does another debrief with some additional questions and digs into maybe student history a little bit more and determines next steps. When there has been a restraint in a building, within the following month, there needs to be a monthly level meeting, which occurs with myself, Tammy Beener, our director of behavior supports, and we go out and we look at all the behavior data across that building and come up with any recommendations we might have at the building and district level to help improve behavior response, behavior interventions, safety, security, and that building. Those things go into effect that next month, and we start implementing some of those plans. That was something that we very much fine-tuned last year to add not just building level supports, but district level supports, because if we're seeing patterns across multiple buildings, And it's not necessarily a change or something that building needs to do. It's something we need to adopt or change district-wide. So that has gained a lot of traction over the last year. Last year in this role, we had a few focus areas. One was to improve our data collection. We knew that data collection was not very consistent across our district when it came to referrals being major referral entries, or even in the area of restraint. So we really tightened that up so we could get a better picture of what was truly happening across our buildings in the district. We spent a lot of time improving clarity around the agreement because there were a lot of misconceptions about what staff could and could not do when it came to making sure that they were keeping students and themselves safe. So we clarified that a lot. And we also, we spent a lot of time looking at that data, and we came up with a couple findings. We found that the transition from pre-K to kindergarten was potentially rough for many of our students, especially our students who never attended preschool and did not attend Cedar Rapids preschool. We also noticed that transitions between middle school and high school potentially created some issues with students. We also noticed an increased behavior referrals at the elementary level, especially in those younger grades. So out of all of that, those findings, we made recommendations at the district level, which has turned into changes in practice for this new school year. What we found was that our supports that were in the buildings were stretched too thin to cover all the tiers of support. You'll notice there in the graphic, we have 3 triangles. So in education, we talk about tier 1, which is something all students receive. Tier 2, which is something about 15% of students in your building should receive, and Tier 3, which is about what 5% of your students in your building should receive to be successful. We had counselors and engagement specialists that were stretched very thin across all 3 tiers, not able to provide the right level of support to all of our students in our system. So we made a change to that. We added a new position into our system called an SEBH, or Social Emotional Behavioral Health Intervention Specialist, which is specifically tied to creating and implementing Tier 3 behavior plans, so for those students who need the very most support, and also making sure that our behavior intervention plans for Tier 3 and special education students are being implemented with fidelity. So they are charged with those things, which is allowing counselors, engagement specialists, and our special ed interventionists to do the job that they were intended to do across our system. These next few slides, go into a little bit more detail with those things. So you'll see there our Tier 1 support, which truly is being led by our counselors and our Tier 1 leaders. And there are some things that they do as part of that. Remember, that is for every single student that is in that building should have access to these things. So those individuals and buildings are making sure that those things are happening. Our next bucket there is for our Tier 2 supports. Engagement specialists, which every building has at least one engagement specialist, is tasked with this work, and they're able to really truly dig in specifically to Tier 2 interventions, like check-in, check-out, social emotional groups. They're able to lead that now, where in the past in some buildings they were stretched pretty thin towards creating more plans. That third bucket there is our SEBH supports that we have in our district. We also went ahead and tiered our Tier 3. So you'll notice there, building level SEBH intervention specialists are there at the bottom level of Tier 3. We also have added a district SEBH team of a few individuals that are able to push into buildings to help support either when they have multiple students they're needing to create plans for, or they have a student that's even challenging for our building-based SEBH staff. That district level team is able to go in and support. And we also have pull-out services that we're providing at our middle school and high school level through our SIAP program that we've restructured a little bit this year to have more of a therapeutic approach and less punitive, and ensure that when students go back to their home building, that they're going back with a plan that's proven to work so that they can be successful. Finally, our special education interventionists there are truly there to just support our students with IEPs, and also those that have maybe more needs than lower level needs within special education. So our students who maybe need specific programming, maybe around the autism spectrum, or when it comes to behavior, they're there to really support those students. With this new SEBH position, they're able to spend more of their time helping support teachers and coaching special education staff on supporting those students with the most intense needs. All of those work groups got a lot of training at the beginning of this year because we knew we were redefining their roles a little bit. So we spent at minimum 3 days with all of those groups to provide very targeted training for their work and to begin the coaching process with them. You can kind of see on that slide all the work that went on. In addition to that, our SEBH, which is our new work group, is getting specific monthly coaching from our Grantwood AEA partners as well as our district SEBH lead. And they are also getting monthly PLC groups together to meet with us here to work on common practices around our district. It's very important to us that this year we don't just add positions in to support students, but we're also adding layers of support from the district level when it comes to coaching to make sure that we have consistency across our buildings when it comes to practices and the types of supports families and students can count on in our buildings. There's a picture there of all of those people at the AEA on about in early August and all the time that they spent together. It was a full room. We had the whole AEA reserved. It was really awesome to see all those groups come together really for the first time and start talking about how they're going to be able to help support students in our system. Finally, there's that QR code again. If you have any questions, please scan that QR code or please reach out to me, Riles Parker, here at the district office. I'm happy to take any of your questions, comments, feedback. There is my email. Please reach out at any point. Thank you very much.
Right, just a quick question. Could
yes,
you
Justin.
Go back and talk a little bit more about back to slide maybe 9 about the board policy 615 and 616?
Yeah, sure.
That would be really great to maybe cover that one more time so that the slides match up with your words just a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So board policy 615 specifically states that seclusion is prohibited in the Cedar Rapids School District. Seclusion refers to the involuntary confinement of a student alone in any room or area in which the student is not free to leave or believes that they're not free to leave. This doesn't include a student choosing to go to a space to calm down. Sometimes students don't want interaction with adults and they want to be in a space by themselves. They can absolutely do that. It's just that they're not involuntarily being placed in that situation. When it comes to board policy 616, there's a few slides here that deal with physical restraint. So the first slide there talks about what physical restraint is and that it can only be used in our district when there's an imminent risk of substantial bodily injury. That next slide talks about that physical restraint should only be used as a last resort when feasible interventions and de-escalation techniques have not proven to work. And again there, that it has to be substantial bodily injury. 616 also talks about that it should only be safety team members, which are members that we provide specific training to physically restrain a student, but in an emergency, any staff member needs to do what they need to do to keep themselves and others safe. But ideally, it should be safety team members who get more advanced training to be able to do those restraints when possible. 616 also covers that a restraint should be as minimal as possible. So once a crisis is over, the restraint should be released, and also that a restraint should not be used as a punishment or to enforce compliance with rules or directives. It should only be used in cases of safety. And finally, 616 covers that after a restraint happens, that our students should be receiving a counseling debrief from the counselor in the building or a licensed mental health provider that's associated with our district to make sure they're debriefing any feelings or emotions they may have after that physical restraint. Oh, am I supposed to say thank you? Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I appreciate it.